This tier list is going to be specifically for solo queue only. Experiences in high elo or scrims or tournaments or whatever are going to be completely different than what you see on here. As team synergies aren't going to be considered as much, I'm going to be considering more how well you do overall as a character, how well you can carry, and just pretty much how you fit as a whole with other characters. Let's go ahead and get started. The first character on the list is apparently Void. I'd probably put Void at a solid C tier. The thing about Void is that the meta game right now is extremely fast, and Void, he's pretty good in a constructed environment. He's pretty slow at farming, and he's very team reliant. A lot of what makes Void strong is his ability to shift out his teammates so he can protect a carry really hard. But a lot of the carries in the game right now try to play away from Void. So think like Brall, Joule, these kinds of things want to go in, right? And Void wants to kind of come back and like force enemies to come into him, and then that's how he peels. So he's really good paired with like things like Hudson, and those kind of characters aren't really in the meta right now. Couple of the pace of the game, and I think Void is probably just a C tier character despite how strong his kit is inside of fights. Hudson is probably the worst character in solo queue right now. The thing about Hudson is he isn't technically bad inside of fights, but what I said about Void applies even more so to Hudson. He gets farmed by a lot of the characters that are meta right now. He has a hard time farming throughout the map, especially with the high tempo of the game, and he just doesn't get too much value. His barbed wires are relatively easy to bypass, especially with like jump pads, and so I think it's pretty hard to make Hudson work right now in a solo queue environment specifically. I think contrary to popular belief, Hudson isn't necessarily only a noob stomper. If you play properly or in a more constructed environment with your team, I think Hudson can do pretty well with his barbed wires, as long as your team is playing around them. Imagine a game where a Jhin or a Brall has to go against Hudson's barbed wires, and you have like range carries like Myth or something, right? That's an environment where Hudson can perform. But because that's not really what solo queue is like, solo queue is moving around the map super fast, super high tempo, running around, trying to kill people, popping Oracle, going to fights 24/7, and Hudson does not do very well right. He's best when you bunker down and you just try to hold ground, and which was the case 2 patches ago. Unfortunately for Hudson players, not the case now. Fortunately for everyone else, not the case now. Celeste. So this one, I'm having a little bit of a hard time rating. I want to say Celeste is B tier. So the thing about Celeste is she has pretty good synergy with a lot of powers in the game, but I think her buffs made her pretty solid. I think her wall is very OP, and I think she does pretty well into the super meta characters right now. One of them being Crysta, which we'll talk about towards the later part of this. I think her wall does really well into Crysta's abilities because you can use them to block Crysta's abilities, and now Crysta has none of her resets from her dashes, and then you can go in and get some value. Now, her biggest struggle is the fact that if you go against characters with a lot of mobility, obviously you're going to get screwed pretty hard right there, as characters are going to be able to dash out of your ult. She's best utilized when she's paired with other characters that are going in pretty hard, and you're using her ultimate to force their shifts, which allow those characters to go in to be able to do their job because the enemy carries no longer have their shifts, right? If Celeste can blow the enemy shifts with their ultimate, and then you have your other characters come in and swoop up afterward, that's when Celeste is at her best. Or if they end up blowing, or if your characters end up blowing their shifts and then your Celeste comes in afterward, that's how Celeste performs. She has pretty good escapability. She has wrap potential over Abyss with her left shift, though I don't think that is the best way to play her. It is a way to play her, and she can spike pretty well. So I think I'd probably just put her in a B tier. Maybe she's a C tier, but I'll put her B tier for now. Maybe by the end of this we'll end up adjusting. So Beebo is an interesting character. I do think it's pretty hard to rate Beebo, specifically because there aren't too many Beebo players, but I think this character has a lot of potential, and I think he actually does pretty decently into a lot of the characters that are meta right now. He has good escape. I mean, he's just an all-around character, and everyone who plays against Beebo knows that, right? He's good poke, he has rap potential, he has engage, he has synergies with certain characters, like Celeste, who's right next to him. He's not the best of characters, he's a jack-of-all-trades kind of character, and so I think putting him in the middle in B tier is a pretty solid place for him, and pretty accurate. So Zeph, I mean, if we're not counting Oath as a healer, is just the best healer in the game. Probably put Zeph in A tier. I think he's just a better version of Elluna. He has good carry potential himself with how much damage he can do. If you're really good at Zeph, you can have really good movement, and it's pretty hard for anyone to actually ever hit you. You do a lot of damage, you have great team utility, you have great escapability. I think Zeph is just like a really solid, strong character. Not really much to say about him. Elluna. I'm probably going to put Elluna in D tier. So here's the thing. Elluna used to be considered bad because Brall was the most meta character, and Brall would deathbox people, right? And that's what made Elluna really bad. But I think Elluna isn't just bad because of that. One, I think it's pretty hard for Elluna to play aggro. Obviously, her job is as a support, but hitting her R&B is pretty difficult, especially when characters like Celeste and Oath can block it so easily. But also, there's so much mobility in the game, hitting your R&B is very hard. Anyway, without hitting your R&B, you have negative offensive potential, so all you can do is heal your teammates and pray that they carry you. Because of this, you have to ask yourself the question, why would I even want that on my team when Zeph can just do that kind of healing, but just do it better? Sure, Elluna can revive Wisp, but that's all she has going for her, and that's only good if you end up dying in the first place. If you have a character like Zeph on your team, why even bother dying? He's going to help you with offensive pressure, he's going to help you with staying alive because his ultimate gives you a bunch of healing, his R&B gives you a bunch of healing. I don't really see a reason to ever pick Elluna outside of you're a, we'll say, lower skilled individual and you want a character that's going to be effective for at a lower skill floor. Oath, I mean, not really much to say. Oath is Oath, only tank in the game. I actually think that the assassin version of Oath is probably better than the tank version, especially in solo queue, but both versions are S tier. This character is absolutely disgusting. Even with the nerf that he received to his bunny hop, he still has great mobility. He has the best engage in the game, especially with jump padding in. The fact that jump pads are less readily available is also technically a nerf to Oath that I don't hear anyone really talking about too much, but no one really does what Oath does. No one is able to protect Wisp as well as Oath does, where he can just sit on the body and res people. No one is able to hold space as well as Oath does, where if you ever come into him, you get ulted by him and then you die instantly. He's the best assassin in the game. He's the best tank in the game. He's arguably, I mean, I guess he's not the best healer just because his job isn't necessarily healing, but if he were to occupy the healing role, he would just be the best character in the healing role. Not for his healing, but just his overall utility. He's just an insanely solid character who just does everything too well, and I hope he gets nerfed next patch because this character is way too messed up. Felix. So I think Felix probably goes in, I'm gonna say D tier. Over here with Elluna. I don't think Felix is that bad. I think he accelerates more. I think he excels more in an environment where you're playing with a team and his job is to force enemy shift and then just be there in their phase as your team is wailing down on them. So that means, once again, like characters like Celeste, you're having a team comp where you want to just hard send it on the enemy. You want to force the enemy carry shifts and you want someone to end up cleaning up those enemy carries who no longer have their shifts. And I think that's where Felix is good. Now, the problems with Felix are pretty apparent. One, he gets countered by people using potions. Two, he gets countered by people using their left shifts. 3, he gets countered by anyone with a brain. 4, he gets countered by Oath existing. He just has too many weaknesses. And once he uses his go button, his ultimate, he doesn't really have much going for him after that. I think he's just, I don't really see a reason to ever pick Felix, honestly. I don't think he's a terrible character. He's just not, frankly, even good. He's mediocre, I think is a good place to put him. Let's move on to Kingpin. So Kingpin received some relatively big nerfs if you talk to the NA Kingpins recently. I think that the nerfs to Kingpin don't really change too much about what Kingpin or what makes Kingpin strong. So yeah, you're able to essentially one-tap people without even landing your slam before, but now, I mean, you still have access to insane utility with your powers. If you have a Blink Stone, for example, Kingpin is just an absolutely dominant character. If you land your slam with things like Blink Stone, Grapple Hook, or even just like shifting on top of them, you're basically one-shotting anyone in the game. He snowballs extremely hard, so if he starts getting like yellow or red weapons and he's ahead of the lobby, he'll just end up mowing down everybody. Obviously, he always has pick potential with his hook in third-party scenarios, especially when it's gonna be harder to dodge it, or if your teammates are forcing shifts. I think Kingpin is just a really strong character, and I don't think the nerfs really, they obviously hurt him, but I think he's still just a strong, solid character, especially in solo queue, where you can pretty much do everything on your own. You're a playmaker, you do good damage. Your only downside being that if you end up missing your stuff, you can be in a little bit of trouble. I mean, if you've seen like the variants Tom Kick ends up running, where you just go Vive Infuser, you're so tanky that it's pretty hard to take you down. Bishop. This character is disgusting. I don't know if I want to put her A or S tier. Probably leaning towards S tier. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, when I saw the buffs in the patch notes, I didn't think Bishop would be that strong afterward, but playing against her, this character just feels like an absolute monster right now, which is really weird too, because they ended up nerfing her ult, but they gave her damage, increased damage and range on her auto attacks. They gave her better maxes for her abilities. I mean, I guess it's enough to make the character viable, even more viable. I thought she was like a B tier character before, but now she feels, if not S tier, then high A tier. She feels very strong. This character is pretty disgusting, I think. She's great over Abyss. She's insanely hard to catch. One of the hardest to catch characters in the game. She's great at kiting. Only downside of her is her skills can be a little bit telegraphed, so you have to find creative angles with her, but her strengths are so much that I think it's worth the trade-off. Shrike. Ooh. Is Shrike a D or a C tier character? D or C tier? Ooh. I feel bad for you Shrike mains out there. Except I don't, because this character is cringe. The fact that this character can two-shot you is so unhealthy for the game. Her kit is just really stupid. Now, obviously, she has a lot of counterplay. You hide behind walls, use your shift, you off-timing it. There's a lot of ways to play around Shrike properly. Would I rather have a Shrike on my team, or would I rather have Felix and Elluna? I mean, I guess it depends. If they're bad players, I would rather have the Felix and Elluna. If they're good players, I would probably rather have the Shrike, unironically. So it almost makes me think Shrike is C tier, but I'll put her in D. The thing is, solo queue isn't only playing against the best of the best players, right? Solo queue is also farming noobs. I'm gonna put Shrike in C tier. I think Shrike is okay at farming noobs because you two-shot them from a decent amount of range. Obviously, as you start going against like better players, you're going to end up in situations where people are gonna be better equipped to play against Shrike. I think in competitive settings, Shrike is actually complete dog shit F tier because things like jump pads exist. You have Oath existing in every single team, and that makes Shrike completely unplayable. but almost no one plays Oath in solo queue. And so I think considering the meta standpoint of rarely seeing Oath, of rarely having jump pad engages even exist in the first place, that makes Shrike a lot better as a character. And the fact that people just like fighting in open fields for some reason in the most random of places ever, she's like okay in solo queue. I wouldn't call her good, but she's like okay-ish. Shiv, I mean, this character is obviously just like, I guess this character is just ranged Brall, which, I mean, I guess the second ranged Brall got added this patch, but Shiv is just ranged Brall, especially in solo queue. She didn't get nerfed last patch, and all of her competition got nerfed last patch, so I think by default that just makes Shiv really strong. If you ever end up killing someone, then you just get 25% of your HP back and you just go infinite. Obviously, people are going to be funneling her resets 24/7, so she ends up feeling super strong because of that. You pop your ultimate, you delete people from the game. The character is just very effective in solo queue. It takes coordinated play, I think, to shut a Shiv down, or a competent person playing against her to shut a Shiv down. But the thing is, even if a competent person is playing against her, or you have one competent person playing against her, what about the other 3 people on your team who may not be confident? Think like Katarina from League of Legends, if you've ever played League of Legends. This character, if your team does something really stupid, you just get farmed, and there's nothing you can do about it. You played well against her in lane, you shut her down, you called every single one of her roams, doesn't matter because your team screwed you over. Sucks to be you, I guess. Myth. We're gonna have a lot of characters in S tier today, aren't we? Myth is absolutely disgusting. I'm insanely surprised that this character hasn't been nerfed 4 patches in a row. I don't even know how she got nerfed. I mean, buffed the first time she got buffed. That literally made no sense, by the way. She was already strong. And right now she just feels absolutely unethical with the LMB changes. She feels so disgusting. You're 3-tapping people. Her ultimate is still absolutely insane. She has great escapability. You don't have the need to level up your skills anyway, so the fact that you have to put points into your LMB is completely fine for you. I don't find myself feeling bad because I don't have points in my arrow rain, for example, in solo queue at all. Myth just feels like an abomination right now. I am very surprised people aren't getting Myth nerfed, but maybe that's because Myth actually takes hands to pilot, and you have to actually hit your shots for it to be effective. Whereas characters like Shiv, you could probably face roll your keyboard and you'll be pretty good. The funny thing is, I actually think outside of solo queue, in coordinated play, Myth is probably even better than this. She's probably top 2 character in the game. It's probably her and Oath that are just the best. So she's even stronger inside of coordinated play than she is solo queue, just because her kit is just so stupid. And I say that as a Myth enjoyer. Joule. So actually, Joule is currently bugged, so I'm actually not going to rate Joule. As from what I've been told from the Joule mains, the bugs end up making her feel pretty unplayable right now, but I don't think Joule should be that bad in theory without the bugs. But it's hard to rate her, so I'm going to put her in a bug tier. She won't be rated on here. I will say, if she wasn't bugged, if I had to guess, she's probably an A tier character, but we'll put her here for now, as it's hard to say, as sometimes you just don't get your resets for no reason. Very cringe. Jhin. This character is solo queue god. I hate Jhin. I hate all Jhin players. This character is so illegal. You just run away 24/7. You just farm anyone on the map. No one could ever chase you over Abyss. You just rat. You permanently gain elo. You one-tap anybody. You snowball like so insane. You can never lose any fights. Jhin is BS in solo queue. In coordinated play, this character is probably D tier. In solo queue, this guy is literally a god. Okay, Ghost. Probably putting Ghost in A tier here. So I thought Ghost was A tier last patch originally, but I think that he was a B tier character last patch after evaluating it. This patch, a lot of the characters that do pretty well into him, such as Brall, ended up getting nerfed. And so I think he ended up going up a little bit because of that. I think he also went up a little bit because the LMB buffs help him a lot. He gets a lot of value out of it. 20% damage on his autos is absolutely crazy for a character. I mean, a character like Ghost, where in solo queue, you're not actually playing for the laser, you're playing mostly for the auto attack. His reset is pretty nice. The only downside about him is he doesn't really have any level 4 upgrades that are very usable in solo queue. The R&B upgrade is completely useless. The shift upgrade is literally useless. And then the laser upgrade is insanely fake outside of a coordinated play setting, as the tempo of the game is way too fast. Ghost suffers a little bit because he doesn't have an ability to max. Hopefully, TC will end up addressing that soon, but I think he's a very solid character, and you can't really go wrong picking Ghost. That being said, I think people think Ghost is like a pretty easy to pilot character. I actually think Ghost is relatively hard, like an 8 out of 10 to play it up properly. Or yeah, unironically, one of the harder characters in the game to play properly, just because how hard it is to min-max your autos. No kappa. Brall. Ooh, where do I want to put Brall? This is gonna be the spiciest take ever. You guys think Brall is an F tier character? You guys think he's an S tier character? There's Jinathy up here. Ask yourself this. Would you rather see a Celeste and a Beebo on your team, or would you rather see a Brall? I think the correct answer is, I would rather see a Brall. In solo queue, I think Brall still has the escapability he had before. It does feel a lot easier to fight against him. And so from the POV of playing against the Brall, I think he actually has a lot more counterplay now, because you can dodge the R&B, and that's where most of his damage comes from. And he can't just LMB spam you. And obviously his shifts have a longer cooldown, and he has, if he messes up with his tether, I think, I mean, obviously with like just having a 4-second longer cooldown, it's much easier to punch him. It feels like he actually has windows to be punished now, which is balanced. As weird as that sounds, you can actually make a character with a bunch of mobility that has windows to be punished. At Jhin, at Jhin, at Jhin, at Jhin. Anyway, I do think a lot of the Brawl mains have been complaining about how bad he feels to play, and I probably agree with that. That being said, I still think he's an effective character in solo queue. I think he's pretty good at running around in the map at high tempo. They did end up nerfing Shift Glider, but actually the R&B Glider, despite what it said in the patch notes, still works. So you can still use Charge R&B to run around the map. You can technically still use Shift to run around the map. You just can't glide after it unless you do some Under the Abyss tech, which is a little bit cursed. And then you obviously have Tether, although that is a longer cooldown. So he still has one of the higher mobilities in the game. He still has his reset, but he is punished more easily inside of fights because his R&B takes longer to go off, which means that he's stuck in that position for a much longer time. Obviously, he has less mobility, he has less escapability. I mean, he just has more windows to actually get hit and get punished for messing up. And if I'm being honest, carrying with characters like Shiv or Bishop or whatever is probably just much easier than Brawl. Like, if I think about Brawl versus Bishop, it sounds kind of weird to say it like that, but isn't Bishop like kind of similar to Brawl where you can just go in and just be belligerent and be annoying as hell and then run away? It sounds weird to say that because Bishop's like kind of a range character that can play at range. But I think that's part of what makes Bishop kind of broken. You can just go in their face. Anyway, yeah, you guys already know where this character is ending up. This character is an abomination. I hope they nerf her reasonably. Left shift max needs to be destroyed. It cannot give a reset. This thing is so messed up. You cannot have resets on left shift on a burst mage. You cannot be dashing around like a maniac on a burst mage. This is a burst mage who has the most mobility in the game when you press your ultimate. Legit 6 dashes in a row just from the ultimate alone. And I say that as someone who's a bit of a Crysta enjoyer. I've literally been spamming her on cooldown. Look at this. I'm a bit of a Crysta enjoyer, bro. This character is so messed up. I hope when they nerf her, they revamp every single one of her ability level 4s. All of them are stupid. Shift is way too broken. Q is terrible. And then R&B is literally useless. Please fix all of them. I want her to be in a healthy spot. I want her to be a good, solid character. I think her kit is insanely fun to play. I actually think Crysta is really good game design because what they've done with Crysta is they've taken a character that has a low skill floor and they actually made it so she can have a pretty decent skill ceiling as well. They kind of did the same thing with Oath, where like at a base level, he's pretty effective, but if you want to play him at a super high level, there's a lot of min-maxing you can do to make Oath actually good. I think designs like that are really nice because it gives you a giant reward for actually learning the character while not feeling too bad to pilot in the first place. One of the best solo queue characters in the game. I still think Jhin is just the best solo queue character ever. It's either Jhin or Shiv that are the best. I'm going to do it like this. It's just SS tier right here. It's going to be like this. Shiv is OP, Jhin is OP, Crysta is OP for solo queue. These characters are just so messed up. This is our tier list. If you disagree, I didn't ask. Make sure you subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, can you explain the ship placement? I wasn't there. Yeah, she is Brawl, but she's ranged. Any questions?